You know, in the world of American sports, some teams are, well, they're just teams. But others, there's something else entirely. They're woven into the very fabric, the very soul of their city. Today, we really dive deep into the history, the heartbreak, and yeah, the glory of one of those franchises, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Look, to really get the Eagles, you have to understand Philadelphia first. This isn't just a football team we're talking about. It's like a mirror, reflecting the city's whole identity, that gritty, super passionate, and fiercely loyal vibe. The bond they have with their fans, it's the stuff of legends, built over decades of going through it all together.
Just let that sink in for a second. Every single home game sold out since 1999. I mean, think about that. Through the good years, the bad years, it doesn't matter. The stadium is packed. That's not just support. No way. It's more like a weekly pilgrimage, a full-on ritual. Seriously, the loyalty of this fan base is on another level.
Right. That's the big question, isn't it? What makes it so strong? Well, it's a story of tough beginnings, incredible highs, some absolutely crushing lows, and an underdog spirit that just never, ever quits. To really understand where they are now, we got to go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay, so our story starts right where that tough Philly identity was really forged, in the middle of the Great Depression. It was literally out of those ashes that the Eagles were born, and they had that spirit of resilience from day one. So the team's name actually tells you a lot. Co-founder Bert Bell saw the Blue Eagle symbol from FDR's New Deal, this national recovery effort, and he was inspired. So right from the jump, the team was linked to this idea of a comeback, of rising up from hardship. After about a decade of struggling, they finally found their footing. And get this, during World War II, so many players were serving that they had to merge with the Steelers just to keep playing. They were actually called the Steagles. But by the late 40s, they were a powerhouse, winning back-to-back championships. They capped off this whole golden era in 1960 by beating the Green Bay Packers, and that was a huge deal because it was the only time the legendary coach Vince Lombardi ever lost a championship game in his entire career. And these championships weren't won in some fancy billion-dollar stadium. We're talking old-school venues. These early legends played everywhere from the Baker Bowl to Franklin Field at the University of Pennsylvania, which is where they won that 1960 title. Then the team moved into a new home, Veterans Stadium, but they brought that legacy of toughness with them. And that whole identity was perfectly embodied by one guy from that era, Chuck Bednarik. His nickname was Concrete Charlie. The guy was one of the last great two-way players, a center and a linebacker, and his grit basically defined the franchise for generations to come.
His most famous moment? Oh, it was in 1960 against the New York Giants. Bednarik laid this absolutely devastating tackle on their star running back, Frank Gifford. It was so ferocious, it actually knocked Gifford out of football for 18 months. That play, known simply as the hit, became the symbol of that hard-nosed, relentless brand of football that Philly is still known for today.
So after that incredible high of the 1960 championship, a long, cold winter set in for the team. The glory years were over, and what came next was a test of faith that would last for decades.
The years that followed were, well, they were tough. Lots of losses, not many wins. The fan frustration famously boiled over in 1968 when a Santa Claus got pelted with snowballs at a game. But then, you started to see these glimmers of hope. Coach Dick Vermeil came in, and in 1978, you had the legendary Miracle at the Meadowlands, a last-second fumble recovery for a touchdown. It was a sign that maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to turn around.
All right, so the team wasn't just losing anymore, but winning the big one, that still seemed just out of reach. This whole next era was defined by getting agonizingly close to the top of the mountain, but never quite getting there. Under Coach Vermeil, they made it to their first Super Bowl in 1981, but they lost to the Raiders. Then, a few years later, Coach Buddy Ryan built one of the most feared defenses in NFL history, nicknamed Gang Green. I mean, with Reggie White leading the charge, they just punished offenses. But for all that regular season dominance, they could never get it done in the playoffs. And that brings us to the early 2000s, the Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb era. Man, this was a period of just sustained excellence and ultimate heartbreak. They pulled off this incredible feat of getting to the NFC Championship game 4 years in a row. But they lost the first 3. They finally broke through that wall in 2004, only to lose a super tight Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. So close you could taste it.
So after 57 years of waiting, of so many close calls and what-ifs, the moment every single Eagles fan had dreamed of was finally on the horizon. The long, long drought was about to end.
Sporting their modern midnight green uniforms, a whole new generation of players was ready. They were ready to cast off the weight of all those past failures and write their own chapter. A chapter that, this time, would end with the ultimate prize.
This was it, 2017. They were the underdogs the entire playoffs. And who did they face in the Super Bowl? A familiar foe, the New England Patriots, the same team that beat them 13 years earlier. But this time was different. In an absolute thriller of a game, they won Super Bowl 52, their first championship since 1960. The city of Philadelphia just went into absolute ecstasy.
So when you put it all together, the history, the players, the fans, what is the real legacy of the Philadelphia Eagles? Well, it's about so much more than just football.
I mean, the team's growth off the field is just staggering. The owner, Jeffrey Lurie, bought the team for $185 million back in 1994. Today, the franchise is valued at over $7 billion. It's not just a sports team, it's a massive cultural and economic powerhouse.
But at its core, the Eagles' identity is really a perfect storm of all these things, right? You've got the resilience that was baked into their DNA from the Great Depression. You've got the legendary players who are just incredibly tough. You have the unwavering passion of their fans. And, of course, that classic underdog spirit. They really are a perfect reflection of their city.
From their really humble beginnings to finally standing on top of the NFL, the Eagles have crafted a story that is completely and uniquely their own. A story of grit, passion, and eventually, triumph.
So after finally reaching the summit and breaking that long curse, a whole new chapter begins. For a team and a city that were so defined by the journey, by the chase, the new question is, what comes next now that you've finally reached the destination?